Hey, welcome my friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome. Here we are, Chat with Matt. This is Matt. Hopefully working with Mantara as is expected, as intended, to have a half-hour conversation or thereabouts about whatever might be going on for you in your part of the world, or in your world, your psyche. With the intent to facilitate transformation, empower transformation, growing into a better or a more expansive or a more true, authentic representation or expression of the truth of who you be, your divinity. Without getting all woo-woo on what that means, that's where we're going, right? To find a deeper connection with true self and to be able to confidently express that out into the world. And we're having a normal conversation, although we're working with the energy. That's the thing. I don't usually, I don't make the energy work that I do. Well, of course, I make the light language that I do particularly obvious because it's obvious that I'm not speaking in English. But during conversations, we are also holding a very intentional, energetic space. I quite often don't publicize that so eloquently or so obviously, because I don't want people to get too hung up on it. I don't want it to be too woo-woo. I think this is, in my opinion, this is where quote-unquote energy work is going more subtle, if anything. Subtle but powerful, that we don't have to make a big deal of it. We don't have to do decrees or hold our tongue in certain ways or do mudras or any of that to achieve the results. Hey, Sister Jill. Hey, Sister Jane. To achieve the results that we're looking for, to achieve supporting people and inspiring people and facilitating their growth and their expansion and their transformation. It's just a matter of showing up with intent and allowing that to radiate out around us. And that's what I'm intending to do through these broadcasts. It's what I intend to do throughout every moment of my day. Not always as successful with that as I might like, because my personality gets in the way. And one good thing about coming to a dedicated facilitating session like this is, even though it's a sort of a broadcast to an undefined group of people who may be watching at any time in the future or here live, whatever that means with us right now, is that I'm on my game because I'm very intentional in this moment. I'm not distracted by other tasks like painting a door frame or etc., which is what I've been doing lately, because we're madly preparing our house because we've put it on the market. And in a last minute idea to put our house on the market, the sort of things you do when you get guided, you take risks that don't make sense, but that's where we're going. Hey, Sister Audra. So yeah, I'm open for questions. I just had a look on my little notification post that I put up, and I put a little photo of me doing crow pose on the beach in Bali, taken in 2019, I believe. That would have been September 2019. Perfection is not the end of evolution. Hey, Sister Kelly. I'm very open for any questions to come from the floor, by the way. Just pop them out, because I don't have anything else to go by. I'm just going to talk about perfection is not the end of evolution. A lot of people strive for this thing called perfection, and yet a lot of people are scared of this idea of declaring anything as perfect. Because if you were to declare it as perfect, that would be, in their mind, the end of the evolution, right? That's what we're stuck with now. That's it. That's as good as it gets. Perfection is as good as it gets. Perfection is not as good as it gets. Things can be perfect for right now, and yet in this next moment we have an opportunity to improve on perfection, because this is how the universe works. The universe is continually expanding. Nothing is held static and nothing is complete. So we can declare this current moment as being perfect and yet still have room for that to improve in the next moment. The benefit in declaring this moment as perfect is we reduce a lot of stress. We reduce the stress of trying to fix things, of trying to improve things, of trying to look for what's wrong with the current situation, what needs to be improved so that we can be more happy. We go, it's perfect for right now. Basically means I'm content in this moment. I'm happy in this moment, right? I've declared my happiness in this moment. I've declared that this moment is perfect opportunity for me to be happy right now. And that doesn't in any way reduce my ability to have a better moment the next moment, a more expansive moment, have situations quote unquote improve. And what is improve anyway? It only means it's going in a direction that's aligned with your desires, right? Your desires, whether they're your soul desires or whether your egoic desires, doesn't really matter, but it's your perspective of this moment that is judging whether it is, perfect or not perfect, needs to be fixed, what could be improved, etc. Because someone else could be having a completely different experience or perspective of exactly the same situation, exactly the same moment. So there is a great deal of benefit into relaxing out of problem-centric thinking, looking for what's wrong, looking for what needs to be improved, looking for needs to be fixed, in thinking that once you get through that huge list of fixing everything, then you can be happy, right? It's a no-win situation. It's so beneficial to relax into choosing to be happy right now, despite a whole heap of stuff around you that could be fixed. But it could be fixed, but it could also be perfect for right now. It could be a perfect representation of your history and what's led you to this moment, and therefore you go, well, this is how it is, right? This is how it is right now. This could be improved, that could be improved, that could be improved, but it's perfect for right now. It's perfect for right now. This is the perfect foundation for me to step into being my greatest self right now. This is perfect foundation for me. This is fertile ground for me to express myself creatively right now, right? With all these things that potentially from our mind, from our intellect, could be fixed, could be improved, could be released, could be let go of, could be, annihilated. etc., right? Whatever it might be that we think needs to happen in order for us to have the conditions that are ripe for our happiness. We can bypass all of that, having all of that doing, and just simply go to the being of happy right now, despite all of that. And the irony is, rather than thinking, oh, that's a cop-out, you're just going to be stuck with all this shit that you don't want because you're too lazy to fix it. It's not the truth at all. When you actually choose to relax into your happiness right now, the vibrations align in such a way you get so clear and connected to your intuitiveness and your beingness and your brightness that those things around you easily get solved, much more easily get solved when you have declared your happiness and relaxed into an expansive state of being, as opposed to being concentrated on the problem, having to fix the problem. The problem has power over you because until the problem has gone, you can't be happy, right? So the problem has power over your happiness. In that situation, the problem is much more powerful than if you've already declared your happiness, already expanded into a beautiful state of being, and then look at the problem and go, I know how to solve that, right? No big deal. Okay, a couple of problems. I'm just going to refresh my page here and I'll read them off here, because when they say see more, I keep poking at the screen and it never goes well for me. I'll start at the beginning. Sister Jill said, is there a balance point to be found between just being at the moment and being actively fighting against the new order being imposed? Yeah, there's definitely a balance, and I would encourage no one to fight against anything. What you fight against, you feed, and what you feed will grow stronger. What we need to do right now is to actively advocate for the outcome we desire, right? Now that might look like going to a protest, right? But you do it from a sense, from an energy of advocating for the outcome you desire, not fighting against what you don't desire. Whatever you focus on will grow stronger. So if you're focusing on what you want to get rid of, it will grow stronger and it'll be harder to overcome that, right? When we protest against something, we are actually feeding it. We turn up with an energy of anger, with an energy of fear. We don't want that to happen. And the beings who are creating that agenda are feeding off our anger and fear when we turn up and protest, or even if we're sitting at home and just angry and fearful at what they are proposing, right? We don't fight against that. We see it for what it is. Oh yeah, that's a nice dark agenda. We take a breath, we center ourselves, and then we imagine and visualize and act in alignment towards having the outcome that we are choosing, right? That we are choosing. We advocate for the outcome. So Jill and Susie have got a similar question. I haven't read Susie's one yet. So that's the balance point. And balance points are always very dynamic, right? So there's time to be in your center, and it's important that we allocate time to our meditation or our spiritual practices, going for walks, getting out of our mind, getting out of the doing, and simply give ourselves space to be. Because if we don't do that, our doingness doesn't have a good foundation in the truth of our own vibration. We must spend time actively being our vibration so that it is behind our doingness when we go out into the world. That balance, of course, is dynamic, and I can't say, oh, you need to spend 2 hours a day. Is one day you might spend 2 hours, right, in spending in beingness. Some days you might spend pretty much all day, or as best you can, right, not doing anything, but simply being, because you recognize that is what is required of you. And other days, it might be a doing day because that's what's on your plate as well. It's not that you need to break it down a certain percentage of your time, either daily or even weekly or even monthly, but during your life, right, you are going to spend to live an empowered life, you must allocate time to beingness, to give yourself the foundation to take into your activity, into your doing. So it is important. The balance is dynamic though, and don't fight. Susie wrote, hi Matt, Susie here, trying to figure out a balance of when to, right, God, it is similar, and these two did come in at the same time, when to act on what's going on and when to stay relaxed in my own space, not getting involved in the stress of what's going on. Yeah, it's always time to act, and it's always time to stay in your space and not get stressed. That's the challenge, to act from your space without stress, right? We can act without stress. I know that's difficult, but that's the challenge, and that's the opportunity that's here. So it's always time to stay in your own space and to stay relaxed, and it's always time to potentially act. And we don't need to make the two things polar opposites. We bring them together. We stay in it. We act from our center. And that's the challenge, right? And that's the challenge. So again, as I was talking to Jill, there is a balance there. And of course, sometimes we do need to, for our own mental health and our own energetic space, we recognize that we're running off and we need to withdraw from the world to regain our foundation in self, our own vibration, and that's appropriate. And then there's times when we recognize now is the time to act, and it's kind of like a do or die moment, and we have to throw ourselves in and potentially push past our comfort zone into acting, despite the fact that we would rather pull out, right? And so there are stressors there, and we are working with ourselves, using our practices, our breathing and whatnot in the moment to reduce our levels of stress to a more manageable level, even though we're putting ourselves in a situation that is uncomfortable for us personally. That might mean, fronting up to authority when we have a history, a deep history, a past life history of being persecuted by authority in very similar ways to what's happening right now. Many of us are getting very triggered, many of us light workers are getting very triggered by this situation that's unfolding. And also many of us light workers are feeling a huge amount of internal purpose in stepping out right now, despite our discomfort and despite our triggered responses, our internal fear around what has happened in the past, and potentially how we've been programmed through torturous experiences in other lifetimes that are around a similar, theme of the authorities, taking over or overtly controlling our society in a very dictatorial tyranny. Exactly. Memories of ducking and burning and torture and chained to walls and having eyes poked out with burning rods, iron rods and all sorts of charming shit like that. Having your entrails emptied out on the table in front of you, all sorts of memories there, Jill. I'm sure I can out-memory you if we go there. We're not going to. Many of us have some very, very, very deep traumas around, standing up as a being of light against dark tyranny. The good thing about this moment right now is the darkness really has lost their foundation, and they're really acting out of desperation right now. They are very, very desperate right now. Hey, Sister M. M did her first solo show. That was yesterday, right? Well done. Was good. Then I felt terrible and everything. Well, I'm going to read it down here. I did my first solo show. Was good. Then I felt terrible and everything was wrong about me. Yesterday evening, this morning, I feel tired and calmer in my belly. Awesome. That's an awesome, what's the right word? Indication. Feeling terrible after doing something is an awesome indication that you expanded yourself, that you went beyond, that you actually stepped past your fears and delivered on a level that is new for you, right? That is expansive to your soul. And when we expand into such a self-expression, expression of self, a purposeful self-expression, when we do that, we tend to trigger a lot of our shit. A lot of the vibrations that we're still holding hidden within our field that says we can't do that are now very, very triggered, out of place, discordant, because you've just done something that they're saying you can't do, that's not safe to do, right? And you just went and did it, right? So they've been trying to warn you against doing it. You did it anyway. Now they're sort of feeling out of place. Well, hang on, I'm here to stop you doing that, and you've just done it. So what's my purpose now? So they all come up, right? So it's all up. All of this, I'm not good enough to do that. It's not safe to do that. It's not appropriate for me to do that. Society will judge me for doing that. It's dangerous to do that. All of that will come up after you've done it. Right, and that's the irony. You want to be celebrating the fact that you've stepped into an expansive expression of yourself, and instead you feel like absolute dog shit. This is very common, unfortunately. Welcome to my world. But it's great, right? Because you will overcome it, and then you will feel calm, and then you will feel actually some form of cathartic release, right? You will feel an interesting emptiness arises after that expression of all that's wrong with you. And it passes, and then you go, I'm still here. And I feel kind of a bit different, right? I feel a bit empty, a little bit like we go into the void there, and it's like, what's next, right? What's next? And of course, you've got your show next week, and that's the great thing, right? That now you have... You've got a schedule, and this is going to keep driving you. And next week you're going to bring up something even more potentially candid, or even more deep, or even more risque, right on the edge, even more woo-woo, whatever it might be. It's not that you need to outdo yourself. You just get into deeper and deeper expressions of what feels purposeful as you keep stepping past different resistances that hold you back and keep you safe and keep you guarded in what you can and can't say, and what you can and can't facilitate, and in how you can and can't show up, right? And slowly but surely over the years you chip away at it, right? As I've been doing, right? I remember my momentous show that happened September 2015. I still remember it very vividly. And then, and what a huge breakthrough it was for me. And then I look at myself today and how far I've progressed over the years since then, right? So the progression continues, but as you said, we gain some momentum, right? We're doing it, we're showing up. The first step is always the hardest, and which is the first step? That's it, right? You could say the first step, there's always a new first step, but it's always hard. But with every new step, we gain more momentum. I'm sitting on a freaking Swiss ball because we've taken I used to be sitting on one of our dining chairs, but obviously it's back in the house because we're getting ready to sell the house. So I'm sitting on my Swiss ball. So apologies for me bouncing up and down like a head on a stick. So yeah, well done, Em, and thanks for bringing up that concept that after we do it, and this is for anyone who does anything, and it might not be facilitating on a radio show. It might be having a conversation with your spouse, with your partner, or with your children, or with your parents, whatever. Right? It might be going a little bit deeper, a little bit beyond something you've been scared of for some time, expressing yourself more authentically, and you do it. And you feel great for doing it, and then after there's this after effect where there's all of this self-doubt comes up. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I've gone too far. That was silly of me. They're not going to respect me, or whatever. Right? It's all going to go horribly wrong now. Right? This pushback that occurs after we do something that is actually aligned. We get this pushback. We think that if we do something aligned, we're going to be rewarded with all of this good shit happening, and quite often we're not. Quite often we're challenged straight after taking an expansive step, and it doesn't feel very fair. The universe should really, that was a hard thing for me to do. Surely they're going to give me an easy time now, and no, they're not. Because the universe isn't like that. Not that they're deliberately hard on you or anything, they're just neutral. It's just the way it is. This is just energy mechanics, right? It's just energy mechanics. Okay, awesome. Jill wrote in, this selling my house and buying a new one malarkey triggered the first panic attack I've ever had, and I did feel better afterwards because I had a good medical checkup showing that I was in good nick. Now to packing up 31 years. Yeah, Yeah, exactly, Jill. So that's exactly right. It actually triggered a panic attack where it was significant enough for you to take yourself to the hospital, right? Which wasn't a bad thing at all. But you know that's what happens, right? You took an expansive step into a new purposeful pursuit for yourself. You left your security of 31 years and have taken yourself to what is greener pastures for you. You know that it's an expansive step. It's an opportunity for you to really, you know, the energy in that new place is going to help you do a whole heap of stuff with your essences and with your beingness and with your purposeful expression in the world, right? You are moving into a space that is much more conducive to you showing up in a way that's going to feel more alive for you, right? More purposeful and more authentic for you. So a huge step forward, and yet, right, it triggered a massive panic attack after you had done it, right? After you had done it. Well, you've still got stages to go, but the big linchpin of the move, right, the decision making, triggered this huge linchpin after it was done. So the resistance wasn't enough to hold you back. You had the soul impetus to go forward and to take the risk, and then the personality caught up and went, oh, no, we're not supposed to do this. This is too dangerous, too risky, too out there. But it's too late, right? So then panic bells are ringing. We've stepped past all of our quote unquote safety mechanisms, right, which are supposed to keep us small and insignificant. And when we step past them, there's an avalanche of release. The challenge is to move through that experience in a more aware way and in a more opposite of stressed way, relaxed way, more accepting way, right? To accept that moving through that process is all good. Awesome. What next, my friends? How are we going for time? 9:25. I still got a good 5 minutes and I was a few minutes late getting on. We're in good shape. So what would you like to know? Who's next? Hit us with something. We got through the Eclipse. Wasn't it a beauty? It was Friday night here for me, I think, or was it Thursday night? I can't remember. Anyway, we did the call. The call was good too, I believe. Talking about or facilitating on this vibration of expanding our self-worth and really accepting ourselves, and also being willing to receive abundance and naming it financial prosperity, money, and all things energetically supportive. Right, we facilitated on that because I really felt, even though the moon had a lot of, and the eclipse, right, had a lot of potential for dredging up darker vibrations from within us, I really felt that the time in that chaotic soup was to step into our worth and our center, and so that's what we facilitated on. It's still very valid. It'll be valid till we basically get to the new moon. So if you haven't heard that, you just scroll down the Bright Light Beings group and you will see it there, the event link, which is now the replay link. So you can listen to that. It's only half hour or so, maybe 35 minutes, I can't remember. But definitely powerful. And the moon itself, right? I was surprised because I heard it was a partial eclipse, but I didn't really look at, quite often I'll look at the diagram to see how much it was, but I was quite surprised that it looked like almost a total eclipse from our part of the world, and it was reasonably early in the evening, so it wasn't long after sunset for us, so it really came up red as the eclipse was progressing. So very, very beautiful. So that was nice. Yeah, the new town definitely is much more aligned with your vibration, Jill, so it will feel much more homely and much more supportive, and will inspire you to step out into more of your expansive expressions of self. So yeah, we got through the moon, and what's next, right? We've got a solar eclipse coming up, and again, I haven't looked at it, but I believe it's a total solar eclipse. I don't know where that is projecting. Of course, solar eclipses are much narrower band where it can be seen in totality across the Earth. It's like I think it's like about 100 kilometers wide is about the strip, and runs a line of I don't know how many thousand kilometers, but across the Earth. But that's all. Whereas a lunar eclipse, you know, we see it from pretty much half the world sees a lunar eclipse when it occurs. Maybe a third of the world. So a completely different experience. So many of us have seen, you know, lunar eclipses, but not nearly as many of us have seen particularly total solar eclipses. So that's still on my bucket list. We shall see when that comes to fruition. I remember as a kid, but I don't think it was a total one. I was like in primary school, so we're talking in the 70s. Yeah, we had one in Sydney. Anywho. Yes, so that's coming up next. So in other words, we're in eclipse season, so it's going to be powerful. It's the end of the year, that's always powerful. A lot of things are coming up to end right now, and, you know, let's face it, I know we said this about 2020, but 2021 has been a very challenging year, very energetically challenging, and a lot of challenges really seem to be heating up right now with, you know, very intensive authoritarian actions by our perceived governments, you know, which were once democratic, now seem to be going very much, you know, off the rails into totalitarianism, which is, you know, reasonably concerning for many of us, and especially, you know, applying these agendas of, you know, medical non-freedom and, you know, restriction of rights based on choices we're making over our own body, etc., etc. So it's a concerning time, but also an awesome time, because we know with this level of potential, with this level of intensity, huge things are going to change, right? Things are going to, let me just see if I can get rid of my calendar notification without me destroying my live stream. You know, the potential is there for a huge quantum shift, an avalanche of change to occur through these actions, right? But, you know, it's sort of hanging in the balance. And as I talked to my group, you know, I don't believe it's done and dusted. You know, a lot of people saying, you know, the light's won, and the light has won. There's no worry. The earth has nothing to worry about. Whoops, that's very loud, isn't it? It's telling me I'm supposed to be painting something. I'm actually putting everything in my calendar. It's the only way I get through my day, so to make sure I don't go off track and get through my list of tasks as I calendarize it all in amongst my sessions. But I've still got a couple of minutes before my calendar reaches out of the screen and slaps me into action. It's not quite like that. But anyway, what was I saying? Yes, in this intensity, there is huge opportunity for things to shift in beneficial ways. But as I was saying, it's not done and dusted. There's potential there, but, you know, we have to, you know, as many of the questions here were, when do we move into action, and when do we stay in our beingness? And the point is to be in your beingness and move into action, right? Both are important, and both can happen concurrently. And although sometimes, of course, we need to take time to invest more in our beingness, but it's not time to be resting on your laurels, waiting this out, thinking that, you know, the light is going to save us and society is going to emerge beautifully. Society will emerge beautifully if we stand up and be counted as an advocate for the outcome we desire. And that involves us having to take steps that are uncomfortable. For me, you know, very uncomfortable to go against societal dictates and to walk into stores without a mask on and be challenged at the door, etc. And, you know, but that's what I'm choosing to do, even though it's uncomfortable. I'd much rather just put a mask on and go in and get my shit done and get out of there. But I'm choosing to stand up for what I believe is right in a non-confrontational way, right? It's a confrontation internally, but not externally, right? I'm not expressing confrontation out into the world. I am feeling confronted inside of myself as I step past my own resistance to doing what I know is for the highest benefit and good of all from my perspective. So that's it. We all need to be willing to do that. We all need to be willing to step in. And I'm not saying we all need to, you know, do the mask thing. That's irrelevant what you are doing. It's the vibration you are taking into what you are choosing to do out there in the world. And whether it's based in love and based in self-respect and integrity, or whether it's based in fear and compliance, because now is not the time to be complying from a basis of fear. You can comply if you feel it's the right thing to do, by all means. I'm not telling you what you should and shouldn't do. If you feel that, anything is appropriate, then do it, by all means. But be willing to challenge yourself as to why you think it's appropriate. Anything, whether that's on either side of the equation. If you think it's appropriate to not wear the mask, challenge yourself why. Get clear. Get clear and be willing to spend time meditating on that, so that you're not just running in someone else's program. You're not just parroting someone else's fears. You're not just doing what you think is correct based on programming, that you are actually accessing your own heart, your own desires, internal soul desires and impetus, and working from that space, right? Accessing your truth and displaying it confidently as you can, which might mean internal doubts, but choosing to step into it as best you can. Yeah, even the hospital didn't make you wear one. I think places like hospitals are actually some of the easier places to get around it, because they understand that sort of stuff, right? That you have rights. Whereas the supermarket or the country store might be a little harder, because some of those people are far more narrow and trying to do what they've been told has to happen, what is the law, even though it's not really the law. Sister M wrote, I feel heaps of energy, heapas of energy about the end of the year. I am really glad I have this flow to keep on track with for my passion work. Yeah, it's really valid and valuable, M. I feel like this will be what gets me through, even though it's a bit of pressure on me. Focusing on self right now feels important, in my opinion. Exactly. And I'd encourage everyone to find creative pursuits and purposeful pursuits, and not to get too carried away in the external narrative, right? Yes, it's time to act, but do it alongside you living your life. That's what's most important, is that we get out there and live our life as expansively as we can, as expressively as we can, as aligned with our truth as we can. And that generally will involve us having to step past resistance, right? That will necessarily involve us having to take what appears to be a risky step into being non-compliant in some way, right? So do the non-compliance, not for the sake of it, but because it's necessary for you not to comply, to live on purpose, right? So identify a purpose, doesn't have to be the purpose, but a purpose, right? The purpose is to be purposeful. A purpose is the purpose that's in front of you in the moment. Identify that and do it expansively and authentically, and don't let the bullshit get in your way of doing that. So express your light out into the world as truthfully as you can, despite various agendas trying to squash you down. That is what is being called of. It's not to look for ways to be non-compliant. It's not to look for ways to protest. It's not to look for ways to make them wrong. We don't need to look for how to make them wrong. That's plainly obvious. We just need to look for ways to express the truth of who we be beyond them. We expand out of their mandates. We expand out of their dictates. We expand beyond the rules. We walk above it. We don't push through it, right? I know when I really get myself in the right mindset and I walk into a place, without my mask, then when I'm really on purpose, when I'm really vibrating, then no one can fucking touch me. They don't even look sideways at me. I don't even think some people recognize that I'm not wearing one, even though I'm smiling at them, right? Because that's the other thing, right? You've got to put yourself in the right vibration. You don't want to walk in there all timid like you're doing the wrong thing, right? You're going to get jumped on if you do that. You need to walk in there that you are in the right, because you're in your right to be sovereign and express yourself expansively. So do that, right? And that's a challenge. That's a challenge for us. Awesome, Brother Rich. I am pretty much done. I've done my half hour of chat with Matt. It was a good one, I believe. So enjoy it. Those of you who've caught the end, you might want to watch the start. Yeah, or not, depending. Jill said I was the only one in the room not wearing a mask. I won't say unmuzzled because it's just inspiring. It's just one of those name calling things. No one questioned me. I just sat there all normal. Yeah, exactly. Quite often no one will question you. And if someone does, you just say, I've got an exemption. That works here in New Zealand. And they can't, and some people will want to see it and you say, I don't have to show you. But anyway, because that is the law, or the legislation. I don't like to call it law because it's all bullshit, but it is in the legislation. Anyway, friends, much love. I will be back here next week, same time, same space, with more to share. Feel free. Bye for now. Up here.